Alright, let's chat about the iPhone 7, and instead of watching my boring old face, I thought I would overlay this with some classic Counter-Strike footage. So here's me playing some matchmaking earlier today, and I hope it gives you some visual stimulation while we chat about the iPhone 7. So first things first, I was completely wrong and Apple did actually call it the iPhone 7. You see, I kind of thought, based on all of the leaks, that this was more of a rudimentary upgrade as opposed to a revolutionary new device. And that's why I thought Apple would go with a naming convention such as the 6S Pro or the SE or something that wasn't the 7. Now, I believed this so much that I actually made a video about it, and I also bet a beer with a colleague on it. So, oh well, you win some, you lose some. Now, even though Apple called this the iPhone 7, and people like me who talk about this stuff and are interested in the design and the aesthetics were somewhat disappointed that there was no groundbreakingly or strikingly different design, I think it actually really benefits the end consumer. And why do I say that? Well, now when you think about it, with the TikTok cycle or the number then the S version, they keep their models, their product sizes basically identical. Now what this means is that their engineers basically have a year, at least a year, head start on designing and producing the internal components for these devices to perfectly fit inside that casing. Now if you compare how Apple kind of roll out their product lines over time to someone like Samsung or Huawei or any of the other smartphone manufacturers, they tend to change their designs every single year, which means the engineers have at most 12 to 18 months to actually design components which fit inside of that device. Compare that with the current iPhone 6, iPhone 6S, and now the iPhone 7. The size and dimensions of the case have remained near identical, which means that those engineers have had a long time to kind of perfect those internal components. And what that actually means for the consumer is that you get these insane performance enhancements and improvements time over time over time. And if you look at how far ahead the iPhone 6S and now I would say the iPhone 7 is from its direct competitors, those benefits become even more apparent. So whilst I'm disappointed that we didn't get a drastically different overhaul of the design, I think it's a really smart move on Apple's part. And really I'm just looking forward to next year, which is the 10th anniversary, and I hope to see something big. But I'm sure we'll see the rumors rolling in for that anytime now. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. They removed that good old trustworthy headphone jack. Phil Schiller stood on stage and said that this was about courage, that Apple are standing up for what is essentially inevitable, that the audio jack will eventually die, that it is not a future-proof technology, and that Apple are basically just standing up now and saying, look, we've decided this year is the year that we're going to stop supporting that technology, and they're fronting that criticism and they're fronting that risk. Now, I've always found this frustrating, and I've never found the perfect analogy for what this is like. People have compared this decision to removing the floppy disk, removing the optical drives, removing serial ports, or any number of other ports on their Mac lineups or any of their other devices, and none of them are quite relatable. Now, why I say that is because the audio jack is not hindered or limited in what it delivers. Its only limitation is its size. And I completely agree with Phil Schiller when he basically says that the size inside of an iPhone or any smartphone is so sought after and so heavily prioritized that they decided, look, the headphone jack is not worth keeping in there because it is a single purpose port that takes up a significant amount of room, and the only use for it is audio. And you can get audio wirelessly, and you can get audio through the lightning jack. So there are 3 ways to achieve this thing, and they've got a whole port dedicated to doing that one task. And it took up a somewhat significant amount of room inside that device. So they decided it's not worth it. and good on them. But that was not the same as all of those other decisions to remove optical drives or floppy drives. Yes, space was a big push for those, but those devices were also going out of fashion essentially. They were slow and they were restricted. The audio jack was not. But I read John Gruber's blog during Fireball this morning, and he relates this decision to Apple's decision not to support Flash on iOS. And that hits the nail on the head. Flash was a hugely popular, albeit technologically crap solution, and Apple quite publicly said that they were not going to support Flash, and this pissed so many people off. They copped a lot of slack online and a lot of criticism from consumers for not supporting Flash. And lo and behold, 2.5, 3 years after that decision, Flash is essentially gone and everyone's using HTML5 video, and there is no longer any reason to use Flash. So Apple's decision there was right. They took that criticism and they made the best decision they could. And I don't think anyone says it quite as well as Steve Jobs does at D3 conference in, I think it was 2010. I will chuck a link in the description for that video, but you should definitely check it out. But basically Steve Jobs just says, look, we are making these decisions on behalf of our consumers, and that is what they pay us to do. People buy an iPhone because they appreciate and respect the decisions that we've made in building that product. And if they don't think it's a good product, then they won't buy it, and we will learn from our mistakes. But if they do think it's a good product, then they will buy it. And the removal of the headphone jack is the exact same situation. Tech journalists and reviewers online or whoever can complain about it all they want, but if consumers buy the product, then that is really all that matters. That's how a consumer-driven market works. It really is that simple. If Apple make good devices and they make good decisions for those devices, then people will buy them. And if they don't, then people won't. And that really is all Apple is trying to do, is trying to make good devices so that they sell more of them to more people. Anyways, thanks for watching, and don't forget to leave a like if you liked today's video because it helps me out a lot, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content about Apple's latest keynote over the coming days. Cool, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!